Hello and welcome. My name is Çağlayan Arkan. I'm the Vice President of Manufacturing Industry at Microsoft. What a year it has been. It has been a year of crisis. It has been a year of disruptions, particularly in the manufacturing industry, particularly on the discrete side of the house. My customers were not able to see their inventory, their suppliers were not able to send their employees to the shop floor. It was just a major, major setback. But from extreme disruption stemmed extreme transformation. Businesses responded, leaders rose to the challenge, and Satya Nadella said, we have seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in a matter of 2 months. So with that, I'm delighted to be joined by Enno de Boer today. Enno is the global leader at McKinsey Company for digital manufacturing. He is a friend to me. We also have been working closely with the World Economic Forum regarding the Lighthouse Manufacturing Program. So Enno, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm looking forward to a great discussion. We will be looking together at the past year as well as the year ahead.
Çağlayan, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you, Enno. As we look back, what would you say the biggest impact that you've seen from the pandemic in our manufacturing industry or the global economy at large?
Well, Çağlayan, as we all know, recent world events, most notable the COVID-19 pandemic, have led to significant disruptions affecting nearly every aspect of the global industry. What we have seen is that industries have been faced by uncertainty, disruption in demand. Manufacturing and supply chains were forced to working remotely and collaborate digitally. Several sectors have seen displacements of large parts of their workforce. All of that, along with increasing concerns about our environmental sustainability. Now, we have been working jointly with the World Economic Forum, with you and others on really figuring out what are the front runners in digital doing, and they are providing somewhat us a window into the future. And we can see a little bit what is coming in the next 2-3 years as smart followers are following behind them. We looked at them and we found that there are 4 durable shifts that are bound to stay. We did this extensive research with them to figure out what are these durable shifts. And it became very clear that, for example, the uncertainty that we're seeing and also the disruptions are bound to stay. That means supply chains need to be much more agile, but also much more customer-centric to deal with this uncertainty. Also, backwards, they need to be supply resilient. So we need to build resilient supply chains that are not anymore an option. I think it's very mandatory because these disruptions will not go away. There will be more disruptions coming. What we are also seeing is that the economic pressure is rising. You could talk about a looming economic recession. We will see that, but the economic pressure is rising. With that, productivity and speed stays top of mind for manufacturers. And lastly, I would say, but not least, very importantly, sustainability is more important than ever. So we need to figure out how do we create manufacturing systems that are really eco-efficient. Against this backdrop, the fourth industrial revolution has taken really kind of a step forward, a fast step forward. As you said, like maybe we have already in a few months seen the evolution of 2 years, what we would have expected. Potentially it's even more. So the digital transformation has really accelerated. And we're working through that, but it's exciting, and I think we're seeing that there are new possibility, and so I'm excited to be here to talk about the art of the possible.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Enno. You and I also kept talking about manufacturing as an industry has been conservative, very long cycles, mostly siloed data estate, and digital transformation for some was almost mandatory. We call those disruptors for a reason, or early adopters. But for the most part, it was optional and no more, right? And so I'm in full agreement with you in terms of some of the opportunities, some of the scenarios, some of the themes like sustainability, like resilient supply chains, autonomous systems, autonomous actually everywhere. And then you and I discussed the workforce a ton, right? Because we have been answering questions relative to our job's going away. You and I have not observed anything of this nature. What we're observing is reskilling. Do you want to talk about that a little bit in terms of skills gap?
I think it's a very good point, Charlie. And I think what we are seeing is very intelligent use of technology to make our operators safer, but also make them more productive and let them concentrate on the work that they do best. Where they are creative, where they are coming up with new solutions, and where we take off their backs the very repetitive tasks that are boring and dull. So I think that is what excites me most. I think the other thing that excites me, and we're seeing this from the lighthouses, is that the workforce, they want this. They are excited about this. There are a lot of theoretical discussions around, like, yeah, there's fear and so on. But if you talk to them, and we talk to most of the lighthouses, they are thrilled. They are saying, like, finally, I get the tools in my hand that I need to do my job right.
It absolutely is. I heard firsthand from one of our earlier lighthouses on the shop floor, what would be called a frontline worker or a first-line worker, which is essentially underserved by technology from the past, saying, finally, my company understands what I do is important. Because that person was equipped with technology and new capabilities in terms of what he did in this particular case and on the shop floor. And then you and I were engaged in, like, pandemic-informed health and safety scenarios from this, like, European manufacturer, that greenfield implementation in the U.S. in terms of how quickly they responded to bring that computer vision enabled, AI enabled use case to life, to make sure that whoever they had to have on the shop floor, on the premises, had to, like, wear a mask and be. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was, sorry, but I'm getting excited because, like, we were on this steering committee in May, and we were talking about this, and we looked at this AI supported use case that they had installed, and we said, like, wait a minute, could you not kind of install there that you could detect whether all your operators that are getting into the factories are wearing the right, not only the helmet, but also now the mask and other things. And they said yes. And what was even more exciting, 2 weeks later, they sent me an email and said, it's implemented, it's done, we're working with it. So that's the agility, and I think that's what we are looking for. Having these tools not in the old world. In the old world, it was like, okay, let's define the requirements, let's iron them out, let's go to an investment committee, then let's start an IT project. And 12 months later, I'm getting, as a user on the shop floor, something that I never asked for. Yeah. Now it's like, boom, I need this tomorrow. Can you do that? Sprint. Two weeks later, I get a minimum viable product that has not all the features, but it has the core features. Now this is a little bit working. Now we expand this. So that's, I think, what is people exciting. And I think a lot of learnings from the software industry actually coming into manufacturing, because you in the software industry have used Agile for a long time, but now it's coming into manufacturing, and I think it's unleashing a lot of value.
It is indeed. And I always say, what we do is not about technology. What we do is always about the business value. In this particular case, it's about health and safety. In other case, it would be business continuity. I have another example from Alstom. They have like 2,000 engineers in the design and engineering part of their value chain, their company. And pandemic hits, and they're all disconnected. They use these expensive, desktop stations to do their 3D kind of drawing and engineering and design work, etc. Hardly any of them has these powerful like notebooks, etc. What we did in less than a week, was to virtualize their entire environment and then help them, enable them work from home with just standard internet connection, standard laptops, but be connected. What Alstom told us as a customer that we saved them over a couple €2 million a day by way of connecting all these engineers and keeping the work that they're supposed to do. What we have seen is some companies, we've shared some examples, are able to restart their businesses, perhaps learn from the crisis, perhaps accelerate their digital transformation, and some still struggling. So how do you assess global recovery from a manufacturing and supply chain standpoint, and how do you see priorities and investments shifting?
Yeah, that's a good question, Çağlayan. I think, so first of all, the virus has shown that when we aligned around a common purpose, and especially operations teams that are so capable, then we can achieve things that we have not been thinking that are possible before. And we have seen that those that had already begun the digital transformation were able to very quickly move to a virtual model and just continue and accelerate. That's number one. And for some of the organizations, restrictions resulting from COVID-19 have also shown new possibilities. So for example, a European healthcare company that they just abandoned their 2-year plan to roll out e-health services. And literally they deployed a new remote treatment system to thousands of their patients in only 10 days. Now, if you look forward, I think we're seeing that a third of the value, the total economic value from IoT is coming from factories, from production. So it's no wonder that factories are in the center of this, the center of gravity of the ongoing digital transformation. Also, what we're seeing with the lighthouses is often these transformations start on the factory floor, but shouldn't be underestimated here that it stays on the shop floor. I think it's an environment that is somewhat safe. It's somehow controlled. There are a lot of systems engineers, so it's an easy environment to do the first step of innovation. But then very soon they kind of expand to end-to-end supply chain, into connecting to the customer, connecting to the suppliers. So it becomes literally the engine of the digital revolution. We talked earlier before that the digital revolution is not just kind of bound to small versus large. There are small companies like, for example, Rolt is one of our examples, just 250 employees that have done tremendous stuff. So there's no excuse. And I think rather the smaller will better leverage now, because economies of scale are maybe not anymore so true, or they are working differently, because you can bring technology, you can bring expertise, skills to these sites in a very different way with what we can do today.
Yeah, well, let's say hi to Laura Rocchitelli from here. And an amazing example that I love about digital transformation. Size has got nothing to do with it. This is why we call it Art of Possible. So Enno, that's a wonderful segue to next year, 2021. What do you see or McKinsey see as trends? What do you anticipate in the manufacturing industry?
So first of all, I would say the fourth industrial revolution is no longer a hype. Only a few have figured it out yet, but the ones who have figured it out are marching forward and are creating really dramatic gains in terms of productivity, agility, sustainability, speed to markets. So it will be in the future hard to not compete and just kind of stay in your old way on how you have done things for the last 30, 40 years. you will need to innovate. So there will be some innovation pressure. And I'm very worried, honestly, that a lot of companies will be left behind. So I think a big trend we will see is a continued acceleration here of this digital transformation, because there are 10 million factories around the globe, and all of them need to kind of start to reset. Now, how do they need to reset? We talked earlier about it. We see 4 durable shifts. They need to become much more agile, much more customer-centric. That's number one. There's no question, and that has accelerated. They need to be supply chain resilient. There's no question about that. So they need to connect the entire end-to-end supply chain and connect to their end-tier supplier. They need to drive productivity and speed. By the way, we have seen a decade in the manufacturing sector of productivity stagnation. I think that will dramatically change, because with the new tools, that will unleash a new paradigm of productivity. And hopefully not only productivity on assets and labor, but also eco-efficiency. Because I think there we have really a job to do. And we see these examples. You talked about it. Henkel reduced 38% their energy consumption, 25% of their water consumption. Or, for example, Schneider Electric that reduced 78% of their carbon footprint in their lighthouse. These are all examples that are there. So the big question is, how do we get those accelerated? So I would kind of summarize this. I think 2021 is a year of the Great Reset in manufacturing, and we'll see that. It's starting and might take 2-3 years until we see it across the entire industry, but it's fully starting, and we will see this at scale.
I totally agree with you regarding resilient supply chains and remote operations. All of those are amazing trends that we will see. Actually, you said it well. Industry 4.0 coming to life and at scale. I believe artificial intelligence will be one of the kind of empowering capabilities behind all of that, as we go from connected supply chains to start with. Quickly, you got to go from connected to perhaps a state of predictive and prescriptive and eventually to autonomous. Artificial intelligence can make, as in the case of Microsoft, as a manufacturer, we run a sizable supply chain and relatively complex globally, and we believe 30-40% of all decisions in the supply chain can be made by artificial intelligence engines that you trained, and then you manage by exceptions. So that frees up like leadership time, in a big way.
I think, as you say, decision making gets easier. 30% of the repetitive decision making can be taken out. I think the white collar is a big opportunity here, where we will see, and it's not so much about productivity, but it's maybe about outcome and effectiveness of these decisions that are taken to make our production networks better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, today, for the first time, I will say that we're able to optimize globally across the whole value chain, right? We didn't have the means. Now technology can do it for us. And so the enterprise can have one version of truth. And this is how you connect all your data sources, all your suppliers, your logistics, your third-party data, weather data, even socio-political data, elections causing disruption or pandemic, etc., giving you an unprecedented level of intelligence. Take it from a supply chain to this notion of plant. But we've been doing a lot of work to be able to connect to the brownfield, and use case after use case, value pocket after value pocket. We were able to bring those to life in a matter of weeks. And so we're now packaging those up and develop minimally viable products, MVPs. That will help lighthouses and everybody else, for that matter, to go from like one-off to scale up globally, because this is where the real value capture will happen. So there are so many things, so many new technologies, so many new paradigm shifts, and so much disruption going on. And 2021 will be a defining year indeed. And I know you already talked a little bit about, what your recommendations for manufacturing leaders were, but do you want to say a few final thoughts, Enno, in terms of what lies ahead and what your recommendations will be for the next year for leaders?
Yeah, definitely. So I think first of all is you said it very well. This is not a technology transformation. This is a business transformation. This is a people transformation and a technology transformation, and you need to get this all going at once. So I say to my clients and to manufacturers, make sure that you're focused on the business value and on the business impact, and do it business back rather than technology forward, because there's so many amazing technologies. You can spend a lot and a ton of money on it, but you will not get the value out of it. So you need to make these choices, and only your business priorities can inform you on this. Number two is, I think we talked about this, the workforce and the organization is at the center of this transformation. There's a lot of excitement around this. Build on this, create a mobilization in your workforce for these ideas. Show them the art of the possibility. Maybe build a small lighthouse where people can go. Send them to lighthouses that are out there, that they see the art of the possible and how this makes life and the job more attainable, more fun, more productive. Very clear message: stop with piloting. I've seen so many manufacturers that have more pilots than American Airlines. Yeah, so stop the thousand flower bloom approach. It's not going anywhere. This is the old paradigm, and I understand this. The lean methodology was about, okay, let's do kaizens, let's kind of democratize this all, put it into the field and hope that something comes back. You will get back to that, but first you need to create an operating system that allows you and your people to use in a democratized way technology. So have a strategy, define where you want to drive your business value, and then define the use cases you need most, and build then back behind that the technology that you need. Very important. We have seen it's not about one use case. Typically, it's 20 to 30 use cases that help you to innovate. Think in innovation. It's not about incremental improvement. Digital is also, it's tough and it's work. You need to build capabilities. You need to build, at some point, modernize your stack. Do this to innovate, to go beyond customer breakpoints. And with that, really fundamentally change the performance trajectory of your network and of your supply chain. And lastly, I would say, make sure that you do this as an ecosystem. I think there's one thing that we're clearly seeing at the horizon is, it's not anymore about companies competing against companies. I think what we are seeing now, it's dynamic ecosystems that are forming around business problems, that are coming together, solving a problem, and the next moment they are maybe competing. So it's think about the ecosystem you are in. You want to enable your ecosystem. You need some technology providers that are part of your ecosystem. You need equipment providers, but you need also your suppliers in there and your customers in there. And with that together, you can create something that is really great, and with that kind of really start the great reset.
I'm particularly excited about the people aspect, whether it's the workforce at large or unleashing leadership power by way of the art of possible. Maybe what we should call it art and science of possible, because there's a lot of science involved here as well. I'm secondly very excited about the environmental and sustainability impact that we can provide as we move through this Industry 4.0 journey. And finally, I always say manufacturing is about innovation, it's about growth, it's about building capacity, it's about economy. And it's perhaps, you and I are biased, but the most impactful industry when it comes to the global economic health. So with that, let me thank you so very much for a great discussion today. I'm truly inspired for the year ahead.
Thank you, Charlie. And it was a pleasure to be here with you. And again, I would say exciting times ahead.
Thank you.